Sanibonani bafundi and namkelekile to this awesome life sciences lesson. In our last lesson, we looked very carefully at the scientific method. Now, lesson yethu namhlanje, today's lesson, will look at ways that scientists can deal with the data they obtain from an investigation. Now, very often, you'll have to draw a diagram of something that you have observed. In life sciences, there are certain rules that are followed to make sure that the diagrams are standardized and neat. This is an example of a good diagram. Always use a sharp pencil to draw your diagrams. You should not use color in a biological diagram. You should always not use shading. Your diagram should have bold, simple lines. Now, kumbulani, remember to make the diagram large enough to show all the details clearly. The most common mistake learners make is to present tiny diagrams with the details and labels all squashed up. Rather draw too large than too small. Now remember to leave space to the right-hand side of the diagram for your labels. Labels lines must be drawn with a ruler. The label lines must not cross over each other. Label lines must be drawn parallel to each other. Now don't use arrowheads at the ends of your label lines. Label lines should be written in ink. Now, of course, all diagrams must have a heading which describes the diagram. The heading must be underlined. Now, people who do science often make many observations during an investigation. While they are doing the investigation, they produce data, and the data needs to be organized and dealt with in the best possible way in order to make sense of what they're observing. Data is another word for information. Now, there are two kinds of data: quantitative data and qualitative data. Quantitative data is information that involves numbers, amanani. The data that a farmer obtains about the amount of fruit his fruit tree produces is quantitative. It involves numbers of the fruit and the mass of the fruit. Now, qualitative data involves non-numerical information. Information that describes the way a certain bird builds its nest is an example of qualitative data. Tables are very important tools that scientists use to organize all this data that they collect. Tables can also be used for comparisons. Now let's have a closer look at how tables should look in life sciences. Tables always have headings that describe the content or the information contained in the table. Tables have vertical columns that should have headings. Make sure that the units of measurement are included in the headings. Tables have horizontal rows that often have headings, although not always. The information in different columns along the same row should in some way correlate or be related or linked. Always make your tables large enough to fit all the data into the table. The point about a table is that they make it easy to read the data, so a larger table is far better than a smaller table. You may even sometimes need to turn your page sideways to make your table perfect. Now, always use a ruler to draw the lines in your table. Although tables help to organize data, graphs are pictures of data and relationships. Graphs make it easier to see if there is a pattern or trend in a relationship between variables. Suppose a scientist measures the temperature of water in a pond every 4 hours for 24 hours. The data he collects could be ranged in a table. The table does make it easy to see the individual temperatures at each of the times given, but do you get a clear picture of the trend or pattern in rising and falling of the temperatures? In this graph, you can see that the temperature rises steadily to a point, then drops sharply and evens out around 10 degrees centigrade. A graph shows the relationship between two variables, in this case, temperature and time. There are different kinds of graphs that are frequently used in life sciences. We'll look at 4 different kinds of graphs in this lesson. They are the line graph, the bar graph, the histogram, and the pie chart. In the next part of the lesson, we will draw the different graphs. So why don't you get a piece of paper, a pen, a pencil, a ruler, so that as we work through the section, you can do your own graphs and drawings at home. I'll see you right after the break.